With over 6 Grammy Awards, a music production genius, and so prolific he's been called the Mozart of Gen Z, Jacob Collier is a master that I believe every musician should study. And in this video, I'm going to show you what I like to call the Jacob Collier rule. And how not using this rule can keep your music sounding amateur, or at least not as interesting as it could be. And this works in every genre. So let's listen to this rock track I made using this rule, and then I'll explain what it is and how I was able to use it in this track. So what I like to call the Jacob Collier rule is just tension and release. Understanding how to create tension and release that tension is really what can bring an interesting aspect to music that most people just kind of miss out on, or the tension and release that they do have is just somewhat boring. Listen to what Jacob has to say about that here.
I want everyone to sing a D. So... and when I give the cue, I want you to go up a semitone, okay? But just wait a second. Now up a semitone. And now go up another semitone. And up another one. And up another one. That's nice, yeah? So see the feeling of this? Chromatic voice healing is so lovely. Yeah? But if I go... there's tension here. And then when I release it, it's like, oh, you know? Whereas if I just did all the chords like this, then you wouldn't have that feeling. So it's all about, for me, harmony is all about the way things feel. And it's just so important to get it right, because as a harmonist, you know, as the arranger, or as the singer, or as the instrumentalist, playing a melody, you have a sort of right to the audience. You are obliged to take them on a journey and sort of tell them a story. So if you can keep something the same for long enough, then when you release it, it's really exciting. You know?
Now, the way that I like to use this, and the way that he was explaining it as well, is using what's called a pedal tone. A pedal tone is just one note played in duration throughout the entirety of the track. When you play a pedal tone and you move chords around it, it can sound really interesting. In the case of this track, I had this guitar playing a D note. It's playing a D note through the entirety of the track. But you can see that I'm playing different chords above here as well. So as this D note is continuing to play, I am having the bass and the rest of the guitars play different chords. So right here is the chord that all of the instruments are playing. And listen to how it creates that tension with that D note. So you're probably thinking, great, that sounds amazing, but why does that work? And I think you should ask that question, because that question is going to open up a world of opportunities once you understand how this actually works. So first and foremost, the D is our pedal tone. We're holding that the entire time. We love this D. It's really creating that tension for us. Now, in the context of a D chord, it's holding down the root. It's creating this strong, stable balance for us. We love that. So this feels natural, this feels good. Now when we go to this E flat and still holding this D, it's creating this really interesting tension, and that's because the E flat and the D, when you play them together like this, it's creating that minor sixth interval, which is just kind of gross, creates this dissonance. But in the context of the entire E flat triad, it's actually creating a major seventh as well. It's like pulling it tight, causing this tension, making this like uneasy feeling. And then we go up to that F, leaving us this kind of like suspense feeling. We just went off of this tension, this and then going into that F creates this suspense feeling. Almost mysterious in a way. It almost feels a little bit unfinished, which gives it that mysterious sound. And that's because it's creating this major sixth over that F chord. And then when we go up to the C, it's creating this add 2 or ninth chord. So once again, the chord progression is D, E flat with that D, still holding that pedal tone out, going to an F, then going to that C. Video editing Andrew here, and I need to address a couple things before I get blasted in the comments. It's almost like I can sniff out what you guys are going to say before you say it. First and foremost is pedal tones. Yes, pedal tones are usually bass notes, but there's a thing called inverted pedal tones where it's the highest voice in a piece of music, and that's essentially what I'm doing here. But for my working definition, a pedal tone is a single note that plays through the duration of a piece of music, whether it's a small section of that music or through the entirety of that music. It basically holds down a note while other things change around it, changing the feel of harmonies. And that's what gets me into my second thing, which is what I'm playing around with here is called common tone modulation. It's all about using notes that distant chords share. And what I'm really doing with that pedal tone is creating common tone modulation and changing the way that D feels. You did hear that D originally in a different part of that music, and now you're hearing it in a whole new light because I'm playing different chords around it. That's called common tone modulation, and using it with pedal tones just creates so much tension and release that's an absolute blast to play with. Now back to Andrew in the past. If you want to know the basics of music theory, I have a Music Theory 101 video guide. You can watch that and download that using the link in the description or by scanning this QR code. There it is. Go scan it. It's going to be fun. Otherwise, you're going to want to watch this video here because I watched every single Phineas interview, and here's his best music production advice. Now, as always, go create.